Okay, I want to show you one more quick thing. Again, this is something that if you took 302 in person, you probably know it. If you had to take 302 online, thanks COVID, you might not know it. So real quick, this will only take just a minute. These are Pipetmen. We're going to be using them in the lab today. They're really simple, but if you haven't used them, it can be a little intimidating. Okay, so Pipetmen come in different sizes. Okay, so this is my smallest one. Maybe you can see it's 0.5 to 10 microliters. Okay, so that's the measurements this one can do. This one is 2 to 20 microliters, and all your Pipetmen are going to say somewhere on them how many microliters they can accommodate. This one is 20 to 200, and this one is 100 to 1,000. Okay, so the Pipetmen, you want to choose the one that is going to be the smallest for the volume you want to use. So if you are trying to get 5 microliters, you only got one choice. That's not true. You have two choices. If you're trying to do 5 microliters, you could use 2 to 20 or the 0.5 to 10. You would want to use the smaller one. You would want to use the 0.5 to 10. If you were trying to get 100 microliters, you have two choices. You could use the 20 to 200, you could use the 100 to 1,000. If you have a choice, use the smaller one. So we adjust the pipette. Okay, you can see it's currently set on, this is 1 milliliter or 1,000 microliters. So somewhere on it, and they're all built just a little bit differently, there's a mechanism to turn it, okay? So if my max is 1,000, a lot of times it'll go up like 1 more microliter. You don't want to turn it higher than that. There's a spring mechanism in here. You'll break it and then you're in trouble. Okay, so I turn it until I set it at whatever volume I'm interested in. Maybe in this case, I want 500 microliters. And I know it looks funny, the decimal looks funny. That's just the way my Pipetmen is built. I think yours are a bit more clear. Okay, and then some of them have a locking mechanism. My locking mechanism is unlocked, locked. I don't think the ones in the lab do, but you may run into that at some point. Okay, so you've got your Pipetmen. The next thing you need is tips. Tips come in a box like this. Either they're sterile when you get them or they get autoclaved, and then you'll see autoclave tape on them. Pipette tips in Somewhat Lab are not wonderful. I saw a couple boxes yesterday, had like a mix of tips, and some of them worked really well in the Pipetmen, some of them didn't. So what you're going to do here, open the box, put the Pipetmen onto the tip, lift the tip up. If you can, it's a good habit to reclose the box, okay? If I were to sneeze right now, I would contaminate all of my tips. Not wonderful. So if you can, close your box back. Some people are really particular about this, some people aren't. My food micro professor a million years ago was super particular about it. She caught you with your box of tips open, it was an automatic 2 points off your final grade. I got in the habit real fast of closing the box of tips. Some people aren't so particular about it, depends on what you're doing and how sterile you need your work to be. Class today doesn't need to be very sterile. Okay, so this is at half capacity, right? If this holds 1,000 microliters, and right now I'm getting 500 microliters, half capacity. So I'm gonna, how do I explain? Okay, so this button at the top has 2 points of resistance, okay? There's my first point of resistance. There's my second point of resistance. When you have your own pipette in your hand, test it out. You'll feel it, I promise. Everyone should try to use the Pipetmen at least a couple times today, even if it's just moving water around for a few minutes, okay? So you're going to push it to that first place of resistance. Then you're going to put just the tip into the liquid, okay? And release. Okay, I know it's hard to see because video, but I can see in my tip there is that much liquid. move it to whatever other container, and then press all the way down. That's it. Then to remove the tip, there's a button that should be by your thumb, and shoot the tip into either the garbage or some sort of holding container. This is just an old container that has a crack in it that we couldn't use for anything else. Kind of recycling a little bit. Okay, so one more time, I open the box of tips, get a tip, and like I said, some of your tips are not going to fit real well. Don't get too caught up in that. Press to the place of first resistance, pull up the fluid, so your thumb is free at this point. Transfer it to the other one, push all the way down, release, and then get rid of your tip. So a couple things to keep in mind here. If you're using several things, in the case of today, if you're using glucose stock solution or glucose reagent or the rat blood, you want to use a different tip every time you change between those things. If I were to be using one thing with a tip and then use it to pick up something else, I could contaminate my stock solution, I could contaminate my samples. We want to avoid that. Okay, so tips match the size of the Pipetmen. Okay, so these were for 100 to 1000. These ones are for the very little guy. Okay, so it works the same, as you guys can see. And they're just smaller and made to fit right there. Tips also come in different varieties. So these ones up here have a little cotton filter. So that keeps things even more sterile. It's a way that we can keep samples much more sterile. Sometimes fluid can become an aerosol and kind of hang out in the pipette. This prevents that. Again, if you have any questions during lab, ask Alyssa. Alyssa is very proficient in using Pipetmen and tons of other lab equipment. Strongly recommend you read the lab procedure before you start anything. Theory of why a spec works is less important today than actually what you're going to be doing with reagents, moving them around. I think that's it. I hope you have a good lab. I hope you have a good weekend. Email me if you have questions about the lab report. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Email me if you feel like you need an extra day on the lab report. It'll be no problem. Assume you have it, even if I don't email you back right away. I'm going to be traveling this weekend. I have a few emails from people about the most missed question on last week's quiz. If you are one of those people, I think I've gotten 3 so far. I will be grading those this evening. If you want to get those points back, check out the email that I sent Sunday night, and you may be able to get some points back on the most missed question on the quiz. Have a good lab, have a good weekend, and